everybody, and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we have an excellent presentation by astrologer and author Carmen Turner Schott, titled Astrology Publishing, Bring Your Writing to Life. If you're enjoying our content, please like and subscribe and join our growing community. And lastly, if you wish to view our latest course, workshop and webinar offerings, please visit keplercollege.org. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, on to today's wonderful presenter. Carmen is a published author, licensed clinical social worker, and psychological astrologer with an international clientele. She completed her Master's of Social Work degree at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri in 1999. Her most popular books are Moon Signs, Houses and Healing, Sun Signs, Houses and Healing, Phoenixes and Angels, Mastering the 8th and the 12th Astrological Houses, The Mysteries of the 12th Astrological House, The Mysteries of the 8th Astrological House, and Astrology from a Christian Perspective. And on to today's topic. Carmen will share tips that helped her successfully publish her manuscripts with New Age publishing companies. She will discuss lessons learned from editing, marketing, social media, and the pros and cons of self-publishing versus traditional publishing, as well as the wisdom gained along the way to help other authors who want to follow the same path. She will also discuss her newest books and her love for astrology. So Carmen, I will pass on the baton to you.
Thank you everybody for having me. My name is Carmen, and I've been studying astrology since I was 16 years old. And what kind of spurred that experience was I saw a glowing ball of light in my doorway, and no one could explain to me in my life why I was so sensitive and intuitive, and I would dream things that would happen. So I had all of these different, spiritual things happening to me, and I felt very alone and very different from my family, from everyone in my life at the time. And so I remember I got my first astrology book when I was about 17, and it was called Astrology of Cosmic Science by Isabel Hickey, I think it was. And I started studying and teaching myself how to do my chart. And it became my passion because it really validated my personal experiences. And so I've just spent my whole life doing consults. I started doing them for fun, really just to practice when I was 19 throughout graduate school and college, and kind of built my practice here in St. Louis, Missouri, back in the 90s and early, 1995 through 99. And just started practicing and studying. And I really wanted to make astrology basic. I wanted to teach it and write about it on a very basic level so everyone could love it and understand it, and make it very simple. Because, as everybody on here knows, astrology, you can spend your lifetime studying astrology because there's so much about it. There's so many different types and things that we have to learn. I mean, I'm still learning, and I'm 47, so I've been doing this a long time, and I'm still learning things, and that's why I love it. But I became a social worker and mainly focused with trauma survivors, and always had astrology, my business, as a side business, and have kind of done both all these years. And I still work a lot with sexual assault survivors, individuals with PTSD. I've worked a lot with children and adults that have struggled with addiction and different traumas. And I've done private practice. I've worked with, military, all kinds of different places. And so I always have loved to use astrology as a tool for self-awareness. So I started really doing this at a young age, and I really, figured out that the reason that, number one, that I wanted to help people was because I naturally attracted people that had problems. And at the time, I didn't really know why people would come up to me when I was in the grocery store and tell me very deep, intense things. And I never understood, what is it about me? I used to ask myself, why are they sharing all these things to me? And then when I learned astrology, it all made sense. And that's what spurred my research about the 8th and 12th astrological houses specifically, which we'll talk about a little bit. And I have this, as you can see, I pulled my chart up here just so you can get a little glimpse of me. I'm a Virgo rising, Virgo sun, I'm an Aries moon. I got a lot of 8th house, a lot of 12th house, right? And so that really opened my eyes and got my passion going for astrology. And that's what spurred me, to want to write. So these are the self-published books that I have out there. And I'm going to kind of tell you the backstory, how all this came to be, and some challenges and learning lessons I had along the way. And I'll tell you, I'm still learning now, writing books and working with publishing and all these things I'm learning from other authors. And so I'll go through a lot of things with you in the slides. And then at the end, I definitely want to answer your questions and let you ask me anything you want. But these are my books that I self-published, and I'll kind of explain them. And these are the books that I have published with the actual publisher. And so my two main publishers are Llewellyn and John Hunt Publishing, which now recently changed their name to Collective Inc. And they're based in England, in London. So I have an international publisher, and then I have a stateside publisher. So, just to start off, my writing process. I've always loved to write, and what's easiest for me is to handwrite. And so I really feel like it's kind of a form of automatic writing that I've always done, where I sit and I just kind of get in touch with my intuition, and I just write what I see, what flows through, and I handwrite just pages of notebooks, which I have laying around my house, right? So I would write articles. I would handwrite them first, and I would edit them, tweak them, and then I would type everything up later. And that is what I've always done, since the early 2000s, when I would write articles and when I first started really writing about astrology. I would handwrite. And so that's kind of the thing that I do that really helps me a lot to connect with my intuition. And I think, every writer has their own process of what they do. And, number one, I like my solitude. I'm a 12th house sun and Venus. So I love my alone time. I need peace. I need harmony. I need quiet around me. And that really helps me connect to my writing process and my intuition. And that's what I do. I can't just sit on a computer and start typing. I just can't do that. I have to handwrite everything and then type it. So one of my first experiences with writing a book, I kind of got this inkling, and I think it was like 2004, 2005. I had wrote some articles for a magazine called Spirit Seeker Magazine. I was a columnist with them for many years, and I wrote about the sun signs and the houses and just the basics, what do all the planets mean? And I had a lot of articles published, here in St. Louis for Spirit Seeker. And also I lived in Ohio. There was a magazine out in Cincinnati, Ohio, called Promise Magazine. I had a monthly feature article with them as well, mostly about the sun signs, just the basics, very basic astrology here, to teach people just about their personality and that psychological piece, right, of astrology. And I decided, what, I'm going to get these articles and I'm going to self-publish a book. And I just kind of got this inkling one day. So back in those days, back in 2005, there was a place called Book Surge, and it was an online self-publishing agency. And I used Book Surge Publishing. And in those days, you had to pay a little money. So I think I paid like $300 to have my book published. And it went out on Amazon and all of the sites, it was out on all the online book sites, and I could order copies, all of those things. But back then, I didn't know what a book signing was. I didn't know about marketing a book. There are all these things I didn't really know. I just kind of self-published this book called A Deeper Look at the Sun Signs. Had my uncle create the cover art, right? Because he's an artist, and I wanted this kind of vision of Leo, the lion looking at itself in a mirror. So he kind of created this for me, and it was really very quick. And I'll admit, I should have got an editor. This is a lesson learned. I should have really maybe even hired a professional artist, right, a designer to do the cover. But at the time, it was just, something creative urge. And I thought, I'm just going to do this. So, of course, the book hasn't sold really well, through the years. It was in paperback in Kindle version. Now I just have it in the Kindle version. But that was my first experience self-publishing, and I really didn't know what I was doing. It was like, I just want to share what I've wrote and share my love of astrology and kind of get the word out there. And then in 2008, 2009, a couple years later, I was living in Ohio, and I was really obsessed with the 8th and 12th houses. That is where most of my research has been for the past 30 years. And I have Facebook groups dedicated to it and books and everything. But I wanted to really figure out why, everyone with 8th house planets that I would do counseling, consultations for, we all shared these similar patterns, these energy patterns. And we can talk about it at the end as well, some of the patterns I've seen in my research. But I wrote an article called The Mysteries of the Eighth House, Phoenix Rising. And I wrote that article and I put it out online. Back in those days, we didn't have, I think Facebook wasn't even around when I published this article. And then Facebook kind of came around 2008, 2009, I think, 2010. And this article was out there. And for many years, people would email me and say, your article really helped me. I have, Jupiter and Sun in the eighth, or I'm a Scorpio and I really resonated. And I just started getting feedback, right, from my articles. It just started out as put my articles out there, trying to publish articles online. And that's how it all really started. And a lot of people started reaching out to me and I started collecting their stories and doing charts for them and all these things. So that kind of spurred my book that I wanted to publish called The Mysteries of the Eighth House, Phoenix Rising. And when I went to look for publishers, I sent this book out to many, many publishers. At the time, Llewellyn, this is a really interesting story, how it all came full circle for me as a writer. I sent it into Llewellyn at the time to the editor. And it was, I think in those days, I think I had to mail it. I think I actually mailed the manuscript to them. And they ended up emailing me and they said that they were interested in the book, but they didn't want a book about just the eighth house. They wanted a book about all the houses because it was more marketable, because you got to think like a publisher thinks. If it's a very niche topic, very, small, or it's not going to be able to sell a lot of books, a lot of publishers won't publish it because they want something that can reach everyone, the masses, right? Because that's more money for them. And so I didn't know any of this. And so I really didn't want to do this because I wanted to publish an eighth house book because that was my passion, was the eighth house. But I decided to go ahead and do it. And I said, okay, I'll write a book from scratch about all the houses and the planets through each house. And I started writing and well, let me go back. They offered me money to write the book. So I think it was $1,500 up front. I didn't have an agent. I didn't know what an agent was. I didn't have anybody helping me. I was just guessing at all of this stuff. I really didn't know what I was doing, honestly. So I went and took the $1,500. I spent almost 9 months writing this book for them, right, for this editor. When it was done, I sent it in. And what happened was the editor was gone. They never were writing me back. And I started calling and they said, well, they got a new job. Well, no one told me. And next thing you know, they come back and say, there's just not a market now for a houses book. And I was devastated. I mean, you can imagine, because I thought, oh my gosh, they paid me. I thought I was gonna get published, but it just was something that happened. I think they had a lot of staff changes. A lot of editors changed over, and when you get with an editor, that editor is kind of your person. And I learned this now when I have my published books. They pitch for you. They get in that room with everybody and try to sell your idea, right? And I didn't have that because they left. The person that liked me, liked my eighth house stuff, they left. So they didn't publish my book. They apologized and said, it's just we don't have a market right now for that book. And they did a market analysis or whatever. So I said, okay, lesson learned. I'm going to go ahead and self-publish this book, because I had already self-published, the Deeper Look at the Sun Signs, right, book. So I went back on BookSurge and I called the book A Practical Look at the Planets Through the Houses. It's very basic about this, introduction, sun signs, planets, what it all means. And then it's just the planet through the house. So it doesn't go into aspects of the planet and each sign and all that. I just kind of do the basics. And I published it. I self-published it myself, right? Never had anyone edit it. That was I edited it myself, and I just got it out there, and it cost me about $300 to self-publish that book. And at that time, Create Space, BookSurge became Create Space. And then Amazon bought out Create Space. So all the royalties that I was getting through BookSurge and Create Space transferred to Amazon KDP, right, royalties. So I went through that transition where you can, I had to change my payment, how they pay me, my royalties and all of that stuff. And I'm going to tell you some differences between self-publishing and publishing as far as the royalties. It's a very big difference, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So after that book was out there, I thought, you know, I already have this Eighth House book written, and you know what, I'm just going to self-publish it. And I didn't even send it out to any other publishers to even try to get anyone else to publish it. I don't know why I didn't think of that. This was like 2009 when this was all going on. And I decided to go ahead and self-publish it. And I had a friend of mine create an image of the cover art. But when I went to try to do it and publish it in the system, it just wasn't working for the cover. You know, it was a lot of things. So I ended up having him design a graphic cover of the book, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. But I actually just changed the cover recently of this book and had a artist design it for me and make it a little bit better, because I just was sick of the cover. You know, it's out there, it's self-published. I didn't even have an editor look at it, and it's one of my best-selling books, honestly, as far as all my self-published books. I sell more of this book, the Eighth House book, than any of my books, especially Kindle versions, and paperback is out there as well. So this is self-published, and some things, you know, that I recommend, you know, to submit to publishers, because I never did that. And I think the more proposals you put out there, the better it is. And I know it's going to be work. And I think, you know, you just have to really take that extra step. And I think that would have really helped me. I think I probably could have got a publisher for that Eighth House book. But I'm kind of glad I didn't. And I'll tell you why, because I get more royalties from that book than I do from my published books. And now the difference is you may not sell as many books. That's the difference. But I'm going to tell you some of these things I learned that were eye-opening to me, because I had no idea. And I'm still learning. Like I said, every day I learn something new, right, about all of this. And so brainstorm an idea. If you have a creative idea, a catchy title is very important. Develop these proposals and you need to let them know, you know, do you have a following? Do you have a social media presence? Do you know, how many, you know, Instagram, Facebook, do you run groups? Do you teach astrology? You know, do you have people that would buy your book? You know, these are all questions that are going to be in this proposal. And I've given you a link of a sample proposal, but every publisher, you know, Weiser, Llewellyn, John Hunt, everybody has a different way that they accept proposals and different questions, right, in the proposal. So you have to use their proposal template. And so, and make it very professional. I recommend, you know, getting it edited, and have a couple different people look at it, you know, and make sure that it's really, really perfect and ready to send out. And you can just get it all ready and send it to all of the publishers at the same time. That's my recommendation. And when you do this, you need to make sure it's a broad niche, that it's not, you know, that it won't, you got to sell it. You got to really sell yourself and market yourself. It's all about marketing. I'm telling you, all of this is. And I like marketing and I enjoy it. So it's been fun for me to create ads for Facebook and social media, you know, and market my books. I love that stuff. But if you don't like marketing, it might be good to hire somebody through Fiverr. Okay. Editors, you can get editors through Fiverr. You can get people to create, you know, Facebook, you know, cover image for you that's real professional, a YouTube banner, you know, all these things, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But you really need to get some help, you know, for maybe the areas that you're not, you know, savvy in. And I think these are lessons that I learned, you know, that I should have done at the beginning. Sometimes they will want you to have at least 1 to 3 chapters completed when you send in the proposal. So a lot of times they want that. They want to read, you know, your style, kind of see the idea, table of contents, kind of the basics, right? And so before they'll give you a contract, you know, they're going to want to see all of this. And so, you know, I recommend, you know, hire an editor, have them review your work, and come up with a very special idea that you can say, hey, this will reach everyone. You know, not just astrologers are going to be interested in my astrology book, because astrology publishing is a tough business. And that's what I'm learning, because a lot of these publishing companies, they're not specializing in astrology publishing. they're specializing in witchcraft or spirituality or very broad new age topics, right? And astrology is kind of a very specific niche, and a very specific person, right, can write an astrology book. Not just anybody can write it. You got to know it. And so they're not really sure how to market us sometimes, or how to get us out there, right, with these astrology books. So this is something that I'm learning now about. And so those are some tips with this. So self-publishing, I'm going to give you the positives and the negatives. Okay. So the positives is you get to keep the rights to your book. Okay. It's your book. You're publishing it. You own it. And when you go in there to do this on KDP, Kindle, or on Amazon, is kind of where a lot of people publish books now. And that's where I published my other Kindle books, was on KDP on Amazon. You actually will be the publisher, your name, it'll be Carmen Turner Schott, or you put your name as the publisher, because you own the rights. You get higher royalties from self-published books. So I think, for instance, for my Kindles, I get 50% of the royalties. For my published books, I get 10%. You get 10% of the royalties up to 1,000 books sold. Once you sell 1,000 books, you maybe get 15% of the total royalties. And there's more to this, which I'm going to tell you later. And when I told my brother this, he said, "That's all you get from your book?" And it was like, kind of hurt my feelings. I'm like, well, hey, but I'm doing what I love to do, right? I'm writing. So you can make money being an author, but it's going to take a lot of dedication and work. And that's what I'm learning. I'm not making a lot of money. I'm actually spending more than I'm making with my royalties. I'm spending way more. And I'll explain that. And the thing is, it's patience. It's time. Because the way I look at it, I'm a Virgo, I'm an earth sign, is you have to put the effort and work and efficient, dedication in to see the benefits in the future. And it's going to be a lifelong process. What I learned is that your book is your baby, and it's your responsibility to market it. The publishing companies do a little bit of marketing, as far as magazines and stuff, but it is up to the author. And I learned that the hard way. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have been doing this. And I'll share that with you here in a little bit. But it's your baby, and you gotta really put effort into it. But in the end, it's going to grow. It's going to build up, and the more people are going to know about it. And then and I'll talk about Amazon reviews and ratings. That's a whole nother thing with the algorithms that I learned. That is a whole business that is very frustrating. So I'll talk to you about that here in a little bit. But the cool thing about self-publishing is, you have more control over your work. So it's your book. So if any time you want to pull it off of Amazon or wherever and try to get it published, you can do so. And so that's the cool thing about self-publishing. If you want to do it, you can. The negatives are you're going to have less sales, because unless you hire a marketing team and you're like paying lots of money, which I've done, for ads. So your book is sponsored book, right? So people that Google on Amazon can see your book and, oh, that looks interesting. Because if not, no one's going to see your book. And that's what happened with my Deeper Soul, Deep Soul, the Deeper Look of the Planets, all the 3 first books I published. I wasn't marketing or doing any ads at all. So I wasn't getting a lot of sales. What helped me start getting sales for my 8th house book was using Facebook, sharing my book link, marketing it, doing videos on YouTube, right? Talking about the 8th house book that I self-published. That's how my sales started coming in on that book. And that is my best seller as far as my self-published books. And you have to pay a lot of money to market. I just did a Amazon campaign for all my books, and I had a budget of $1,000, and it went like that. Because the views, the clicks, it all counts and adds up. But I did sell books, but I spent more than the sales of my ads. So these are things that I'm learning. Okay. And it's just part of the publishing world, part of the business, right? And it's going to cost you some money to publish, right? You might have to pay $200, $300, and you might have to create a cover. I had to pay someone to do that for my Kindle books. I ended up paying a graphic designer to do the Astrology from a Christian Perspective cover. I had an image in my mind. I wanted it to look like that. I'm not an artist, so I paid somebody to do that. I paid about $500. And then I paid someone some money to create the astrology awareness cover for the Kindle book as well. And they have to have it a certain format, measurements, all this, or it won't upload. So you go through that kind of thing with whoever's designing your cover. And I recommend going through Fiverr. Guess what? I just learned about Fiverr like 2 years ago. I had no idea about it. And now it's awesome. So I go on there all the time, for my YouTube banners, my new Facebook page banners, editors, and video help. I'll talk about that as well, about SEO and all this stuff I'm learning that I had no idea. What is SEO? I mean, I'm learning all these things. So I'll share with you. But the biggest thing is have a catchy title, have a catchy cover, but be willing to spend a little money if you're going to self-publish. Okay. So something that I learned is that, what is the difference between a publicist and an agent? I had no idea. And so you can hire a publicist to work for you and market your self-published books. You can do that. It's going to cost you money though. And a lot of people can't afford that, especially with self-published books, because you're not making the sales. You're not bringing the money in from the royalties. So what typically happens is once you get published with a true publisher, they assign you a publicist. And for both of the astrology publishers I work for, both of them they have many books. And most of them have lots of authors. Probably 100. Who knows? And they're not just astrology authors. They have many authors that they are taking care of. What does the publicist do? They pitch your book to get you on podcast. Okay. They'll do their best. They'll send out, something I had to, you create as a booking sheet with your author questions, your social media links. You create this with your author photo. That's another thing. You need to have a very professional author photo taken for your books. And that's what they like to use on their websites, etc., and all the marketing. And they'll pitch you to get you on podcasts. Now they'll link you with all these podcast hosts, but guess what? It's up to you to follow through. So you've got to, get on their calendar, go to Calendly, find a date that works for you, a time. You got to get Zoom to work or whatever, StreamYard, whatever, Skype, whatever they're using to make sure you can get in there during the interview. And some of these interviews are live, they're streamed live on Facebook, Insta, YouTube. Some of them are recorded. This is something that I learned the hard way, that a lot of these podcasts, they don't come out for 3 to 4 months after you do it. So your book may be brand new and you really want to get out there, but you don't even get the links, or it doesn't even go live for 3 or 4 months, which we'll talk about that as well, because they're interviewing hundreds and thousands of authors. And they have, it's just in order of who they interviewed first, right? When it's going to get released. And the downside is that, the publicists have so many people and they're so busy. And everything that you do as an author, you're going to want to tell your publicist about. Like, I'm doing this, right? This event. I'm doing the Kepler Live Book Club. I'm doing some other live events and classes. So you want to email all of that to your publicist, but you can imagine they're getting that from all of the authors, right? And they put it on the website. So sometimes you might have to follow back up. Hey, I noticed it's not on the website, my events, because the publicist will email out everyone your event schedule. You'll be able to see all the authors for Llewellyn, where they're going to be. Are they doing book signings? Are they doing classes? So, they market you. So they really do send a lot of emails out. You're in their magazines. Your book is highlighted on their website. These are all pluses of having a true publisher, right? And the truth is, it's a team approach, and you have to market yourself. You have to market your own books. You are the only one that's going to be able to do it. And that first book I published, The Sun Signs, Houses, and Healing, was my first one. And I'll talk a little bit about it in a minute. The thing about that book is I didn't know anything what was going on. Literally, I didn't realize, okay, I should have a new website. My website was old and it wasn't good. And one of the ladies that was interviewing me on a podcast said, hey, you need to get a new website and you should make it your name, CarmenTurnerSchott.com. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. That's a great idea, right? So you learn through networking. It's all about your social connections and everyone you meet. I love it. I love meeting these podcast hosts. I love meeting other authors, and I love connecting with people, because that is where you learn these awesome things that you never knew before, right? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so guess what? Money. I had to pay to get a whole new website, which wasn't cheap, but I tell you what, it's worth it. So you got to put the money in at the beginning. It's like any business you start, you have to put into it to make it better. So I got a new website, all of that. And then she said, hey, you really should look into getting an agent. I'm like, what the heck does an agent do? Right. I'm like, what's the difference between an agent and a publicist? I mean, I didn't know. She said, well, the agent is who you go to for your book ideas. And then they go and pitch your idea to all of the publishing companies for you. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. And she goes, well, but it costs money. I'm like, oh, how much? Well, it could cost, $3,000 to $5,000. I'm like, whoa. And that's just to get them to pitch your idea to all the publishing companies. And I said, okay, I'm not going to do that. But I did talk to an agent just to, see what it was about, had a little talk with him. And he said, listen, you don't need me. He said, when you need me is when you have your new book idea and you want to try to get a publisher. I said, okay. He said, so call me, email me when you have your new book that you want to go for, and I'll help you. What I didn't realize is this, which now my friend who has an agent just shared with me 2 weeks ago, and I didn't know this. I just learned this, that this agent takes 15% of all her royalties. So if they get you a contract for the rest of that book's life, they're going to get 15% of your royalties. So these are things that I've learned, okay, that no one tells you when you're doing this stuff, right? And I'm sure if people were more of a researcher and really dug in and read books about this before they publish, it's probably in there maybe somewhere, but I don't know. I haven't seen it. But I think the plus side of an agent is they might be able to get you with a more popular publishing company, okay? But I didn't use an agent. I was able to get my book published with Llewellyn, which I'll share with you kind of how that happened. And it was nerve-wracking. And I'll share with you some lessons learned. So my first book, I wanted to write a book about astrology and healing, but I wanted it to be, very deep and have personal stories and client stories and things like that. And, when I pitched the idea to one of my astrology friends, he's my mentor, and he's like, you need to submit this proposal, it's a great idea, etc. So I sent it to the editor at Llewellyn, the astrology editor. Every section has their own editor. So you'll have a certain name and a person that you're going to send that idea to, write that proposal that we talked about. And then you're on pins and needles, you're going to wait for them to write you back. So how it happened for me is she liked the idea. She thought it was really cool. I had like maybe a chapter written. She asked me to write a few more chapters. I did so, tweaked it up, sent it back. And she said, okay, I'm going to take it to the team. So I'll let you know what happens. So I'm waiting for a little while, right? A couple weeks, wondering, she's told me when she was going to take it. I think the meeting was canceled or something. So it was pushed back a little bit. So I was just like waiting. Are they going to like it? Well, they liked it. She said they like it. But we're not going to give you a contract yet because we want to make sure that there's a market for this book. I said, oh man. Okay. So, and at the time, this wasn't the title. Okay. They come up with the title. They very much came up with the title. I mean, I had some input, but this time I'm like, I like it. Let's go for it. I mean, I was pretty easy going with the title. I liked it. I wanted it to have something about healing and resilience, but they really wanted, their feedback to me was they want to make it broad so it can sell to a lot of people. So everyone's interested in the sun signs, but it's very basic, right? So this book is a beginner's guide. The whole they wanted me to write an introduction, which was a lot of work. So it was all of the basics about astrology. I wrote an introduction. What are immutable? What's mutable? What are the elements? What are the signs? What are the houses? What are the planets? Grids, graphs. We worked through that. So that was additional writing right on my part. So we did all this, and they did a market analysis, and they asked, okay, we need your website, your followers on YouTube. how many people are in your groups, all this stuff. And they looked at all that. They looked at my self-published books. This is what's important. I think that's what helped me get my first contract, because they saw that my Eighth House book was selling, right? And I had, I sold the other books as well, but not as many as that. And being a self-published author, it was important for them to see that I had a following, or that I was selling some of these books, because be honest, I wasn't marketing or doing ads. If I would have done that, it probably would have helped me even more. But they said, yeah, we got the market now is good because of your, you've been doing this a while. You got your groups established, right? And things like that. So they offered me a contract. And so what happens is they'll mail you the contract. I just read it, signed, got it back to them, and it tells you, what percentage of royalties you're going to get, all the rules, right? Different rules like that. And this is the thing I learned: your book will not be published 10 months to 12 months after the final manuscript submitted. So you're looking like you're behind, right? So your book is done. You won't see it for another year. So it was really being patient, right? And then what happened was a lot of editing. So there's the cool thing about having a publisher is they have amazing editors. Their editors are the best. Know what to write, they know what to tweak, they will edit it, they'll send it to you, or you can reword it, and then submit it back.
Sorry
and
to
then they'll give you
interrupt,
a final
Carmen.
copy to review.
Hello?
Before it. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. There was a bit of interference there. I know we were talking about Mercury in the shadow period. So the last maybe 20 seconds of what you just said, if you can repeat, sorry.
Oh, the 20 seconds? Okay, sorry.
Roundabout. Sorry, yeah, it's just cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, you were too. Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
It sounds a little better. Yeah, we'll try again.
Okay, so sorry. But it takes at least 10 months to 12 months for your book to make it live. And so lots of editing, but you get input. But I will say that the original manuscript that you submit is going to look completely different than what you get. When you see it, I'm like, oh wow. So it was kind of weird, because part of me was like, it sounds like me, but it's different, right? Because you've got to let the editors do their thing, because they're smart. They know what they're doing. And you might feel like, well, it doesn't really have my voice. It's still your voice. It's still your work, but you have to trust the process of the editing. Okay. That was very eye-opening to me. Right. And that was great. And they really had great ideas. And some things they asked me, what does this mean? Can you clarify? I mean, they really they push you to be better, and they push you to really make the book everything you want to be. So we did that. And I realized what I learned is you get paid twice a year, your book royalties. Okay. The author upfront gets 10% of royalties until you sell over 1,000 copies. And after that, I think it's 1,001 copies. It's like 15% of the total royalties. And this is Kindle, paperback, international. There's all these things that go into it. And then you get author copies for 50%. So if you want to buy copies of your book, to have a book signing, or to give away or sell, events, you can get 50% off your own copies of your book. So that's kind of what happened. And when that book came out, they were booking me on some podcast and things, right? But when that book released, a really cool thing happened. My editor called and said, hey, we really want you to write a moon science houses and healing book now. Can you do it? I said, of course. I mean, so from scratch, I wrote this book, and I took like 3 weeks off on Christmas vacation from my normal job. And I hand wrote first, like I told you, just, what I already know about the moon signs, everything I wanted to say, what I've seen, and just did my writing thing, and then typed it up. They sent me the contract before I had the book written. Okay. So this was a little different this time. Right. And so they gave me that contract, and they trusted I was going to write them a good book. They gave me 1 year to write the book. So I had it done pretty early. I think it took me 6 months, and I gave it to him, and it just released this May 2023. My Sun Signs book came out last year, 2022. And but during this time, I was also working on an idea about the 12th house. because that's one, the 8th and 12th are my favorite houses. And I submitted an idea to a different publisher because I had kind of pitched the idea to this publisher, and they said, no, it's just about one house. It's not broad enough. It doesn't reach the masses. I'm like, okay, no worries. It's still my creative idea, and I want to do it. So I looked around, and I was literally Googling other publishers, and I found John Hunt Publishing, and I submitted the idea, and they said they were interested. And so I started working on getting that book published as well at the same time. So guess what? They both, they both kind of came out. That 12th House book kind of came out too. So, but the thing is that the market just needs to be bigger for these publishing companies to really want to publish astrology books, because, it has to be unique. It has to be broad, because they don't want to just sell to astrologers. They want to sell to everybody, right? They want people to go into Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever, to the astrology section and be newbies and want to get a book that they can understand. So when this book is a very basic beginner's guide about the moon signs as well, chapter dedicated each moon sign. And so I just started sending some proposals on my 12th house stuff, my 12th house idea. And that's when, which I don't recommend, this is a lesson learned, don't do 2 books the same year. It's a killer, because you're doing lots of podcasts, you're working a lot, and it's a lot of work. So I learned next time I'm just going to really focus on the one book at a time, and then and not do 2 books a year. But I was just excited to get the Mysteries of the 12th House published, Fallen Angels. And so John Hunt was my publisher out of London, and their whole system is very different. It's all online. So you submit everything to an online database. Everything they communicate with you is through this online system. You have a login, password. You get updates when you get awarded a contract. You find out in the online system. It's different. You don't get a call from an editor. You don't get an email. You got to go in and check the system. So what happens is, I submitted the proposal, filled out all of the same information that Llewellyn wanted, John Hunt wanted. How many followers do you have? How many books have you published before? All of these things. How many sales of your books have you had? They're going to ask you questions, and they have 4 different levels that they offer for contracts. The levels 1 and 2 is they publish your book with no cost to you. Okay, they publish it. Levels, I believe 3 and 4, they want you to pay them a little bit of money to publish your book. Okay. So you can publish a little bit more easily, I would say, with them, because you may have to do a fee. Okay, if you don't get a level 1 contract or level 2, you might have to do a fee. And how they base the contracts is level 1 is like you could sell 10,000 or more books. That's what they see. If they see you selling 1,000 or more books, you're probably going to get a level 2 contract. So I got level 2 contracts with this. I level 2 contract with this book. And the royalties were the exact same as my other publisher, 10% of royalties until over 1,000 copies sold. And then 15% after 1,000. And then Kindle, you got 25% royalties for ebooks. So a little bit more royalties there. And you only get paid twice a year, just the same as the other publisher. They deposit into the account. Llewellyn sends a check. So, every publisher is different, right? How they do it. But I published the Mysteries of the 12th Astrological House. It came out last summer. It came out the same time that my Sun Signs book came out. And then this year, my Moon Signs book came out. And I had also submitted to John Hunt. I got excited once they took my 12th house book, and I submitted my Phoenixes and Angels book idea about the mastering the 8th and 12th houses to them. And they liked it. And I got published with them, a level 2 contract. I have the same publicist who's amazing, and he is absolutely amazing. I just can't say enough. Both my publicists have done everything they can to get me booked on shows to really market the book. And one thing I learned is that if you have multiple books published out there at the same time, you need to make sure you only talk about the book that your publicist books you for. So I stick with that. Like if Gavin books me for Phoenixes and Angels, I only stick on the Phoenixes and Angels, and I market that book. If Kat books me for Llewellyn, I only talk about my moon signs and sun signs books, right? So because they do a lot of work and a lot of effort to get you on these shows. And so that's something that they ask you to do, which I honor that. So you can imagine my surprise when I first started doing the sun signs book. I asked the publicist, well, he's like, you've got to get a lot of pre-orders. We need a lot of pre-orders. I'm like, okay, what's pre-orders? What do you mean? I had no idea. He's like, well, we want your book is going to do well, and we'll know how well your book is going to do by how many pre-orders you get. And I'm like worried. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, she's like, yeah, so you need to market, you need to, put a lot of things out there so we can really know what's going, get this book pre-orders. And I said, well, how many, how many pre-orders do I need to have? I was worried, because it's my first book, with the publisher. He said, well, 800, we expect 800 to 1,000 pre-orders. And I'm like, that's a lot of books. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I said, well, how many do you think I'll get? He goes, well, you got about 500 now. I'm like, oh, okay. So you're good. They have a system, they can go in and look. But you can imagine you're trying to sell and market your book before it's even available. So I'm like, it's hard to convince people, oh, go pre-order my book, go pre-order. I mean, they're like, well, is it going to be mailed to me? No, not till 8 months from now, right? When it's live, when it actually is released. So this is something that I had no idea about, guys, as an author, about pre-orders. And so I learned that now. And so with my sun signs book, I didn't market it as well. And guess what? It didn't sell as well. But when I had the moon signs book and the Phoenixes and Angels, now I knew. So I was marketing 8-9 months in advance on Facebook, everywhere. Hey, I got a book coming out. This is it. Pre-order now, right? I was doing a lot of marketing about pre-orders and on everything I did on social media. And so my moon signs book had a lot more sales. Okay. And that book is done a lot better than my sun signs book because I knew what I was doing now, right? A little bit. And so, as your books get live, another thing that the publishing company wants and the publicist will say is you need to get at least, I think it's 50 ratings or reviews for Amazon algorithm to be broke. Because when people search, if you don't have a lot of ratings and reviews on Amazon, your book won't come up. It's going to be all these other books, right? Unless you have an ad, unless you pay money to have your book sponsored as a sponsored ad, which I've been doing now, but I didn't do that in the past. Because I just didn't know enough. But now I'm like begging, it's like, how do you get people to rate and review your book? Well, there's rules. I mean, you can't promise people, hey, I'll give you a discount if you rate my book. You're not supposed to do that. And Amazon, this is what I found out. I have at least 20 people tell me that they tried to rate and review my books and Amazon would not let them. I'm like, what? So I got a little bit upset. So I called Amazon, trying to figure out about this. And they said, well, they have to spend, I think it's like $100 in a year on Amazon in order to be able to rate or review products. So there's all these things that I learned. I'm like, and they're like, yeah, I never buy anything on Amazon, but they wanted to rate my book and they couldn't do it. I mean, I'm not kidding. Just last week, I had a lady in Canada. She got my sun signs book. She loved it. She said, Carmen, I have tried to rate and review your book and it keeps telling me it's rejected. Like they want me to edit it. I don't know what else to do. And they said it wasn't an adequate rating. She sent me the screenshot of what she said and it was very positive. Never got published. That rating has never been published. And many people have told me they've rated my book and reviewed it and I've never seen the light of day. Never seen it. So there's some kind of an algorithm going on, guys, with this. And what they want is they want you to get over 100 reviews. And once you get that, really 50 or more is good. If you can get 50 or more ratings and some reviews, and even if they just rate it like a 4-star, 5-star, that's better than nothing. And I didn't know how important this was because it tells Amazon and all these online bookstores kind of, they also look at pre-orders. How well is this book going to sell? They're already like strategically looking at this as a business. Okay. And so this is something I realized. So they screen out reviews. This is the problem. And the reason is, like I said, you have to spend money. Again, there's a robot. When you're submitting these reviews, there's probably a robot, an AI that is accepting or rejecting them. And sometimes, like my brother and a couple of my friends that have my book, they said I tried to rate it and it won't let me, and it would submit and it wasn't showing up. It was like a month before I saw reviews or ratings show up. So I'd be going on every day. Is anybody ready to review my book? No. Or I'd have 1 star, and finally, once you start getting that, when you break that 50 review mark is when that algorithm changes. And so what I learned to do is what's called a book review rally. So this is an ad I had on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, just really trying to get people, hey, if you like my book, can you review it, right? Trying to reach 50 reviews. I mean, you have to do this stuff. And I wasn't comfortable doing this. I really wasn't. But I'm like, you know what? No, these books are my passion. They're my babies. I want them to sell. And I want people to read my books, right? And buy my books. And so I did this and it helped. So I started getting, I think my Sun Signs book has 42 ratings, 42. I'm not even at the 50 mark yet, but that book has only been out a year, right? So not too bad. Moon Signs, I don't have a lot because it's brand new. It just came out. But I'm getting ready to do a book review rally for that book, and my Phoenix is an Angels book as well. But some things that I learned as far as book signings, we're going to talk about this. It's very important that you do some book signings. And what was easiest for me is, I live near St. Louis, Missouri, so there's 2 mystical New Age bookstores right here in St. Louis, Pathways and Mystic Valley, which are amazing. And then there's a little mystical bookstore about 2 hours from here called it's Aquarius, but it's in Springfield, Missouri. And then there's a little bookstore in Kansas City. Kansas City's Aquarius Books, that's right. And then the one in Springfield's Renaissance Books. I did book signings at all 4 of those locations. I've learned lessons through all this. The thing to know is that a lot of bookstores, they do not know how to host authors because they don't do book signings. They really don't do them very often. And I learned this. I'm like, well, and they have books, but that's not their money maker, are not books. Their money maker are crystals, earrings, right? All this kind of stuff. And so I happen to know the owner at Mystic Valley, and so they took good care of me. But I did all my first book signings there, and and I had a little table and a chair. But the thing is, the marketing. Nobody knew I was even going to be there. Like I put it on Facebook and stuff, but they maybe hung a sign up, but it really wasn't on social media on their page. And so now, we kind of learned that, and I did a 12th house book signing there, and they marketed, and we kind of did an event on Facebook where we could both co-host, Mystic Valley and me, the book signing event, and I posted as an event on all social media. Eventbrite or something, I think that's what it's called. I created events for that, that's on a website, and just really trying to market right the book signings. And so I got better at the book signings. The first year was kind of not a lot of people came. Now I'm having really great turnouts, and I just did a book signing. I found out Pacific, Missouri, which is like an hour from here, has a cool little bookstore with crystals and a little bit of books, not a lot of books, but they offered to let me sign my books there. And I did many astrology readings after the book signing for everybody that bought my book. And I started, realizing, this was the way to go. And so I just keep researching, in the area where I'm at. So I don't have to fly. I don't have to go too far, right? I was going to go to Nashville, Tennessee, because it's only like 4-hour drive. I ended up not doing that. It was just a lot going on this summer, but there are options. You can go places. And one of the cool things is, you meet people along the way, and that's how I found out about this. I met Misty, I think she's on here, and in Springfield, Missouri, when I was doing a book signing at Renaissance, and that's how we met. And, and she was just at my Moon Signs book signing this past summer. And we talked about doing something with Kepler. And so I'm really excited. And that's my little nephew holding my book. My brother showed up to support. And, it's just important you've got to put the effort in, to do the book signings and things like that. And I have a book signing, coming up for Phoenixes and Angels at Mystic Valley. Again, that's like my go-to. And I'm going to do some consults there for people. And you could do mini classes. That's what I recommend. Do like a little free astrology workshop with them, Q&A or whatever. And then you can sit and do the book signing. And this is the thing I learned too. some of these bookstores, they may not have an account to buy the books through your publisher. It shocked me. I'm like, wow. So they don't have an account with Llewellyn. And I'm like, I thought almost everybody had an account with Llewellyn. No, they buy their books through some other place. And so I had to buy the books, and then they bought them from me. And then I got the percentage. So there were things that I learned along the way with that. Now with John Hunt, Collective Ink, because they are international, they're in the UK, they have a United States distributor that I can order my signed copies through directly. I think they're out in Oregon or Washington State or something like that. And the bookstores have been telling me I'm not able to order those books. I can't order them from them. So can you bring copies? This was new to me. I'm like, well, I thought they could. Some people have been able to order my books from Llewellyn. They got both sun signs, moon signs, and they had tons of them. You know, other bookstores aren't able to do that. So I have this book signing coming up. I'm taking 25 author copies that I bought with me. And that's what I'm going to do my book signing with, because they're not able to order them. Okay. So these are things I learned along the way. Let's see what else with book signings. Oh yeah, this is pretty cool. So with the book signings, I had a place out in New York, Amityville Apocryphy, out in Amityville, New York. They wanted me to do a book signing, like a live event. They wanted to buy my books and etc. And they want to do a couple events, but the first one they want to do is live. And they were wanting to order my books, so I linked them with Llewellyn, and then they were going to ship them to them. And my publicist said, well, why don't we do book plates, book stamps? I didn't know what the heck book plates were. I'm like, what's that? Oh yeah, that way we don't hurt the books by shipping them back and forth. So what they did is they sent me stickers with the name of the bookstore, and I hand signed all of the stickers, and then I mailed them back. They sent me an envelope to mail back. So they'll stamp the stamp inside your book with your signature, right? And then they have an author signed copy. That's how they do it. And so I'm doing an event with them in September. It'll be, everyone will have my book because they're getting it in New York, right? And they have a signed copy. So there's just things like that that was really cool to learn, like what a book stamp. Sometimes they send you a stamp that's actually where you stamp the book, but this time it was handwritten. They had me handwrite and sign each one, which was like 100. So I signed all 100, right? And so that was something I learned recently this year. And so let's talk about podcasts. This is a whole business, okay? And this is something I learned. And at first, I wasn't really comfortable going on podcasts because I thought, well, I'm a little shy. I like to teach. So like talking to you guys right now, this to me is teaching, and I love to teach. But going on a podcast and having someone ask me questions and talk about myself, it's hard. But I got over it, and you've got to do podcasts. Anything your publicist books for you, no matter how popular the show is, do it, because you just never know who's going to be listening and who might buy your book, right? And things happen through meeting people, and the more podcasts you do and the better you get at it, your publicist is going to see that you're putting effort in. And if your publicist sees you're putting effort in just as much as they are, marketing your book and you're doing all this stuff, they're going to give opportunities. And that's what happened to me recently. I think every weekend I'm on a podcast. I got a lot going on through October, but that's because I have an awesome publicist that's booking me, right? Two awesome publicists. But my new book, Phoenixes and Angels, had a great opportunity that came out of the blue, and most people may have said no to it, because let me tell you why. Because I literally got an email, urgent. Are you online? And it was from my publicist in England. So I wrote back, and they're like, hey, do you want to pitch to get on Coast to Coast? They need someone tonight because they had a cancellation. I'm like, of course, yes. Because I knew of Coast to Coast. I'm like, yeah. Well, then I got nervous because he goes, well, it's not a done deal. You've got to pitch them. I said, okay. So I called this lady that was, studio person, and I'm talking and trying to pitch, my Phoenix and Angels book, why, what I'm going to talk about. She's like, well, I don't know if he'll want to talk about that. I don't know. So she said, let me put you on hold. So she put me on hold, and I started researching George Norrie's bio. And I realized he ran a TV station here in St. Louis, where I'm from, for years. And I had these connections with him. So I said, I was just looking at his bio. I'm from St. Louis. I went to college at Washington University. I'm a Cardinals fan, blah, blah. I said, I really want to be on the show. She said, how about, okay, let's book you for next Monday. I said, okay. Well, then I said, what time? Well, it was 2 a.m. my time. It was midnight in Pacific time. So guess what? I did it. I said, okay, I got up at 1 a.m. and I got on live and I did an interview with George Noory on Coast to Coast from 2 to 4 a.m., a 2-hour live show. And I didn't feel good for about a week after that, but it was worth it, because that one podcast, I had 450 emails to my website from that one show. People wanting a free chart or wanting to know more about my book, all of these things. And so it is awesome. And so it taught, and I just recently, I'm going to tell you, it was a sacrifice because I didn't sleep for a whole night, but you know what? I did it. And so those are things that they'll book for you. And the thing with that was cool is it was live. It was on their website. They put all my books on the website, all my links on the Coast to Coast website, my photo, everything. It was great. And a lot of these podcasts on YouTube, like this one, The Typical Skeptic, you can see they got 12.5 thousand, followers. I don't get into that. I'm not just wanting to be on podcasts that have a ton of people. You got to start somewhere. My first podcast, I don't think anybody probably listened to it. It was a phone call, right? So just do whatever they offer if you can, and whatever comes your way. So from the Coast to Coast podcast, I got 5 people reached out, wanted me to be on their podcast or radio show from that one interview. So guess what? That's 5 more podcasts I get to be on to talk about phoenixes and angels, right? And then like this Moon Signs podcast with Marianne, I did this interview in end of May. And guess what? A couple weeks ago, it had not published yet. I thought, did they forget about me? I mean, she said it could be 45 days before it goes on all social media and podcast radio. I'm thinking, okay, well, it was about 70 days. So I reached out. Okay, this is something I recommend. Reach out and just ask. It's not being rude. I thought I didn't want to do it. I'm a Virgo. I don't want to, annoy anyone. But I went ahead and wrote, and I said, just curious, when my podcast might air. And next thing you know, 2 days later, it aired. So I don't know if they forgot, you never know, right? Because of miscommunication, and maybe they, bumped me, who knows, but reach out and ask, hey, when's it going to air? And I've done that with several people that it was like 3 months and I never saw the light of day, right, of the interview. So these are things you can do, but it's going to take a little time. And so something that kind of came out of one of my podcasts, I went on a podcast called Just Ask Spirit for my first book, Sun Signs, Houses, and Healing. And the host and I really, clicked. We hit it off. She's a psychology professor, and I'm a social worker. So we just really hit it off. And she said, hey, how about you come on my show once a month and do an astrology update? I said, oh my God, I would love to. So every month, so this started last December, the first of every month, I air on her show, and we just talk about everything going on in that month astrologically in a very practical, basic way. And we just have a conversation, right? And she doesn't know anything about astrology. And she, and we just talk. And she's an author of many books as well, Emotional Detox and things like that. So the thing about that is it's a commitment. So there's a couple things that I realized I had to do. Number one is she's a businesswoman. So she said she wanted to have a small fee, but the fee was worth it to me to go on the show once a month, because guess what? She markets my books in her on her website, all of them in her marketplace. Everyone knows that I'm going to be on her show the first of the month. They know it's the Carmen Sharon are going to talk. So I've got people coming, right, contacting me through her show for charts, consults, joining my classes. I mean, it's connecting and networking with people. It's bartering. She said, hey, the first 3 shows, how about instead of paying me, you do my 3 daughters' charts? I did that. So you barter. You help each other out. Hey, you come on my show, I'll come on your show. Hey, I'll put your book on my social media. I'll do this. That's what we did, right? And it's been a great thing. The thing about it is we have to record the month before the update. So when we're recording, we just did September recording yesterday. And so I'm having to look ahead, right? Because we're still in August, and I got to make sure I don't misspeak and talk about the blue moon coming up, because we already did that last month, right? So you're recording a month in advance, but I've learned a lot through that, and it's been great. And all of my podcasts, all of my radio interviews. I had my website designer create a link on my website, and I upload a lot of them. The video interviews, some of them are video live, some of them are radio only. So I recommend having a place for both to put those interviews so people can listen to your interviews and things like that. So I'm gonna see if this will play. So because what I'm learning lately, and this is something that I'm really shocked about, and I'm hearing this from other authors, is that people really want you to pay to be on their podcast. People want money now. So some of these publicists are having a hard time getting authors onto podcasts because these podcasts are wanting to charge $500 to $1,000, some more, for you to get on there. Okay. And I decided, you know what? I want to get on more podcasts. I'm going to go ahead and look into maybe paying someone to book me. And there's companies that do this. And I'm not going to say the names, but there's a company that I wanted to try, but they were very new to it. And I didn't realize, and they were booking me on stuff that had nothing to do with my niche with astrology, and it just wasn't feeling right. So about after 3 weeks, I asked for a refund, and they agreed. They said, yeah, we just don't really know astrology. They market a lot of books, but not new age books, right? Or astrology books. So I got a refund. I got a refund on that. And I decided, you know what, instead I'm going to create my own podcast. And I had a podcast years ago on the same station called, it's BBS Radio. I'm going to see if this will play. And I create a little commercial of the podcast. So I created that, as a commercial, and I talked to BBS Radio TV, and I said, hey, I'd like to do a podcast. And I kind of knew them because they're twin brothers. I had an astrology podcast back in 2008, maybe just 4 or 5 shows. And I stopped it because my daughter was like 3 years old at the time, and it was just a lot. But now I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do my own podcast. So I just started at the end of July. I'm going to talk astrology. I'm going to have authors on, and I've told the publicist, I want to interview authors. So I want to broaden my niche, not just astrology, but anything spiritual, healing, of course, astrology, of course, but anything that relates to astrology. I'm going to do this podcast. It's the second and fourth Saturdays, 9 p.m. And the cool thing about it is it's much more cost effective. How do I go to the next slide? There. It's much more cost effective to do a podcast. And the reason I chose them is because a lot of these podcast companies, they make you do all the editing, and then you have to upload it. You have to do all of the back work. BBS Radio, they do all of that for you. They live stream it. I can live stream to all of my social medias when I go live, which we're getting ready to set up now. It'll be on my YouTube, everything. And it's very affordable. And you have your own own page on their site with your banner ad. All your shows will be there, radio and video, for people to watch. You can share them. They send you the videos to upload wherever you want. And so I just started this. And so I recommend that once you get out there, because it's going to save you a lot of money instead of paying $3,000 to try to get on these podcasts that might not have a lot of listeners that are in your niche, things like that. And so the biggest thing, podcast tips. Your publicist will coordinate and link you with the podcast host, but you got to follow up and schedule, right? And you got to follow through the interview. I'll tell you, there's times I've been tired. I had a hard day at work, and I had a podcast at 10:30 at night, right? I'm like, oh man, I had one from 11 to 1 a.m. one night. But you know what? I got on YouTube and I did it. And so you just got to push through, and you got to do it, because you got to market your book, right? And tag people. When the podcasts go live, I tag the podcast host. I share it, right? I do a story of it. I share the links. You really got to do that. I mean, you're doing the work on it. Make sure you market the links, market the videos. You've got to put yourself out there. And that was hard for me because I'm shy. I'm a 12th house sun. I like to be behind the scenes. I had to come out into the light, and it was hard, but you know what? It was worth it. And now I'm comfortable doing it now. And so it's like no big deal. And I typically just wing it now. I just get on there and start talking. But I had to, before I was planning, what am I going to say, and you got to practice. But once you do it, you'll get better. And then again, like I said, make sure to focus on the recent book and the podcast you're on, and what publisher got you that podcast. You got to remember that. And now the podcast that came through other ways, like when I got the 5 people, or people would find me somehow and say, hey, will you be on my podcast? I would talk about all my books, because that wasn't something my publicist booked. You know what I mean? So that's a time you can market all your books, right? And these are just some things I've learned. And there is an issue right now with these companies wanting to charge a lot of money to do it. And so it's something else. So some social media marketing, some things I recommend. Get an author website if you don't have one. Make it your name. You know, I never thought of that. I had the same website for years. It was called 8 and 12th house astrology.com, or 8 and 12 houses.com or something. And I changed it. And it was the best thing I did, really. And then I created a Facebook author page. I created a Instagram profile. I had a YouTube channel a long time ago. And so I've kept it, because I used to do, I have a lot of videos from a long time ago on there, and I'm trying to build my YouTube. I don't have the time right now, but eventually YouTube is the way to go. And I'm learning that is probably better marketing than Facebook, Instagram, or any other social media, because guess what? Your posts are blocked by algorithms on Facebook and Instagram. Half of the people don't even see my posts that I post. They tell me, well, when's the class? I'm like, you didn't see the post? No. So there's things people aren't seeing, right? And you've got to pay for ads on Facebook. And I've done that for people to see the book or the class. And it just costs a lot of money. And you're not always bringing in the royalties to pay for all that marketing. So I recommend get a YouTube channel, Twitter. I don't really do Twitter a lot, but once in a while. Something I learned too, Linktree. If you're on Instagram, they tend to block links, or you can't do links, or they'll block them. So you can put all your links, everything you want people to know, in a Linktree account. And then in your bio, you'll say, visit the bio for the links. And you'll see people say that a lot. I'm learning that. And so I have a Linktree account, and I need to add to it though, because I'm still, trying to link and do stuff. And I know those links aren't being seen. So get a Linktree account for Instagram specifically. They say you need to post 1 to 2 posts a week to gain an audience and to gain, for people to start looking at your book. Start a podcast. You can do some short-term advertise on Amazon if you want to get some books sold, and write and publish articles and excerpts of your book anywhere you can online. And I do that a lot. I still, send an article to Mystic. I think it's Mystic Living. They ask for articles every month from me, and just write things, or just a book excerpt, with the cover of your book and things like that to market. One of the things that is a big thing I'm learning is about SEO. And I'm going to get savvy with this, because I'm still not, but I have like 100 people write me a day on Instagram. Your YouTube videos, I can do SEO. I can do this. I can get you more views. Well, there is something to it. And I paid someone through Fiverr. I pay them like $10 a video to SEO my videos. And they'll show me before and after the data that their SEO standard, I don't even know what it stands for, optimization. It has to do with algorithms and all this stuff. So there is something to the algorithm thing. Get savvy in that. But I'm so sick of paying for SEO for every video I do. I told them I'm only going to do SEO on certain videos. I just made the decision. I just don't want to keep paying money for all that, right? And these are ways.
Sorry to interrupt, Carmen.
Yes.
We had a quick question back onto the radio station. Was it BBS Radio? Was that correct? Just to clarify.
Yes, BBS Radio TV, and it's I think it's bbsradiotv.com. If you Google them, it'll come right up on there, and they're on Facebook as well. You can find their Facebook page and Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you can host a show. It'll say become a host, be on a show. You can submit to be on a show too. It's really great. I really love the owners. I've learned so much from them. They're really look out for their podcast folks that are on there. It's really great.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. And these are some things that people recommend. Try to do a talk at your local library. Try to get in at your local bookstores. And I'll tell you, it is so hard. I talk to authors from all over and that have not astrology books, different books, and it is so hard to get your book in Barnes and Noble on a shelf. I still haven't figured out how to do it. I've called, I went into Books A Million in the local area. I've tried, and so many authors tell me the publishing companies have a hard time getting the books into the stores. It's part of the business. And I'll go in and look for my book, and my books aren't in there. They're not on the astrology section. And I'm doing everything I can to try to figure that out. And what I'm figuring out is you really got to pay somebody to pitch your books to the bookstores. That's what you got to do. If you really want your books to be on the shelf, you may have to pay some money to get that to happen. And unfortunately, that was a bummer for me when I found that out, because I just thought, oh, my books will be in Barnes and Noble. They'll be everywhere. No, it's very hard. I tried to get them to let me do a talk. My publicist contacted them, they blew us off. They didn't even write us back. So it's very difficult at times. So I want to talk about this, and we'll get to questions. I know I talked a lot. I have a new book coming out next summer, Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon. It's about, past lives. I wrote it with Bernie Ashman, one of my astrology friends, and we co-wrote it with John Hunt. We got a contract with John Hunt in England. And so we're going to be, we already got it done. The cover's done. The book is set to publish. So we have to wait 10 months, where I told you like 10 to 12 months. So it doesn't release until June 2024. That's wrong. Yeah, it's 2024, not 2023. And so that is going. And then these are things you can do. Like, I was just on this podcast, Your Superior Self. I didn't know much about it. My publicist, Gavin, booked me on it, and it had a lot of spiritual people that he interviewed and things like that. And it was an amazing show. We kind of hit it off, and he's like, hey, let's do a Facebook Live together. I'm like, of course. And he had never had his chart done. I did his chart live, and we just, that's how it happens. You make these connections with other YouTubers, with other people. And so we're going live August 27th to talk about the moon signs, why the moon is so important in the chart, and also past lives and the nodes. So if you want to join, I love for you to join and live with us on that. And I want to, we can go into Q&A. I have a little video I was going to show, but I don't know how much time we have. Or are we good on time? Are we?
Oh, sure. Yeah. If you want to go, that's great.
Can I see if I can show the video? It'll kind of talk about why I wrote Phoenixes and Angels, and kind of a little bit about that. So I started studying astrology when I was 19, based on just unexplained experiences that I had. And I realized I had 12th and 8th house planets. And once I learned that, it validated my life and who I was. And I began researching the 8th and 12th houses for the past 28 years. I've been really looking at charts of clients. People from all over the world have joined my Facebook groups that I dedicate to both of these houses, and have just seen these patterns continuously happen throughout the clients' lives, unexplained experiences, spiritual experiences that no one can explain. And all of these people have similar life journeys, and they're meant to be spiritual. So I started collecting all this research and started sharing my own stories, my own experiences with other 8th and 12th house people, which I call Phoenixes and Angels. 8th housers are Phoenixes and 12th housers are Angels. And I put their own experiences in this book, and the things they've shared with me through my groups, but also through me doing consultations with people from all over the world. So I really wrote this book. It came out of just people reaching out to me from all over about articles that I wrote. I thought, I'm going to put this in a book to help people that have these placements, and help them know they're not alone, and have them join my 8th and 12th house groups and connect with each other. And so that's how this book came to be. The most important thing that I find when I meet people that have never had their astrology chart done, when I see planets in the 8th or 12th, I'm drawn, and I tell them what I see and different experiences they may have had, and their eyes get big, and they're like, I can't believe this. How did you know this? And it's because it's energy, it's a science. And so for those that don't know, if you have 8th or 12th house planets, it really can validate your personal experiences. When you were younger, it can show you how you dream, why you know things, why you have intuition, why you may have lost a loved one at a young age, why you might have some type of trauma. and it validates your life experience because your chart is the map of your soul. So when you know if you have planets in those two areas, it makes you stronger. And I believe knowing more about it can help people heal, become more resilient, and transform, and just become a stronger person. And then they get interested in knowing more about astrology. And then there's so many things that I can help them with to learn the basics. And then those seasoned astrologers, I know a lot of them, they often tell me that those two houses confuse them. So people, it's like the mysterious, misunderstood houses in astrology. And I believe someone that has planets there can really explain it better, right? Because you've lived it. And I've lived these things. And so I'm able to connect with people and explain it on a basic level. And that's why, I offer this book to other astrologers, because they're counseling people, they're doing charts, and it can give them some tips on what 8th and 12th house people report that their life experience is and the way they feel. And it can help them help people in a deeper way to read my book and to see the stories that all these people have shared with certain placements, like the sun in the 8th, sun in the 12th. It gives them tips, and then they can truly understand and help people on a deeper level. That's why I hope that seasoned astrologers, students, people that don't know anything can pick up this book and really learn more about these two mystical houses. And I hope that they do. As a writer, what always works for me is to handwrite first. And I really sit in a silent place, get connected, and I get a pen and piece of paper, and I just start handwriting everything that comes through. And it just flows that way. And I'll have pages and notebooks full of writing. And then I type. So I don't start out on the computer typing. That's not how I work. I have to handwrite first. And I find that really connects to my intuition. And I see, different images and feelings come through. And I'm like, yeah, I need to share this. And I really get it all out on paper. And then multiple edits. So every day I will go back and look at it at night, tweak a little bit here, add a little bit here. And then I might go a day or two and not look at the manuscript at all and go back and look at it again. And it's amazing how many errors you can find when you think that you have everything fixed, right? So little tweaks and spelling, and then, oh, I forgot to talk about this. So then adding that, and it's just a very detailed process. And I'm like, tear it up, I'm redlining it. It's okay to have someone look at it. And I did that as well, and say, don't be afraid to edit it. Tell me what you really think. And having that openness of criticism, of feedback. And that's how I do my process. It's just it's a lot of work to write a book, and a lot of editing that goes into it, but it's a great thing, and it's a lot of fun. And when it's finally done, you're just so happy. But it's like a baby. It's like, a baby. From birth to end, it's a lot of work you put in, but it's worth it in the end, right? I would tell my teenage self that it's okay to be kind and intuitive, and to trust my intuition, and also to have stronger boundaries with people. And I wish I would have knew that when I was in my younger days. It would have created a lot less heartache for me. Let me just say that. And knowing that I wasn't just being imaginative, that I had true intuition, and that was something I was born with. And no one really could explain that to me when I was growing up. And now, I wish I would have knew those things. The biggest thing I hope is that astrology students, astrologers, and anyone that reads this book will know that the 8th and 12th houses are amazing houses. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's not a bad thing to have planets in those houses. It's actually a blessing, because having planets there make you spiritual. They make you special, and it makes you a phoenix and an angel, which very few people can go through these experiences that you have. And you're special, and you can use your gifts to help other people heal and grow stronger through your own support, because you've lived these things. So it's not a bad thing to have 8th and 12th house planets. I want to make that clear to everyone out there. All right. Do we do Q&A now?
We do. We've got many questions. Thank you
Oh
so
my
much
gosh.
for sharing
Okay.
your expertise and your tips for
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful presentation.
Thank
So
you.
there have been, before we go in a chronological order, there was a few questions both in the Q&A and the chat talking about publishers trying to navigate the waters of AI, which is now coming into prominence. So what are your thoughts around AI, Chat GPT, in terms of, Trudy was saying in the comments here about AI being able to take books and then revamp them and then republish them. So what are your general thoughts now on this problem?
Wow. I just am learning about this now. I through BBS Radio, they had told me about this website because I was wanting to write a commercial. And they're like, well, you need to go to this website. And it was an AI website. And I literally wrote astrology commercial and it came up. I'm like, this is creepy. That's the first time I known about it. And it's very generic though. I mean, but people, that's the first I even knew that you could do this question you guys are asking me. I did not know that this was going on. And then I have a 19-year-old and I talked to her. She just started college and I asked her, she goes, oh, in high school, yeah, the teachers can know if it's AI or not, Mom. If your paper is written through AI or if you really wrote it, there's a way that they know. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, I just recently learned about this, guy. So I'm not a master in this AI thing, but I think it is a little scary. And I have had several author friends tell me they're worried about the AI stuff, how it's going to affect true writers and artists, because we don't, it's not right. We put a lot of effort in our own mind and our own creative process to write through our own words. And if a computer's just doing it, I just think it could be a problem. So I think it's going to be, I think it's this age of Aquarius, right? All of this stuff is going to be technological and things we're not used to, but I don't like it. I'm not going to use it. I'm not. So, but I know that people are talking about it a lot. That's a good question.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one that came up quite a few times.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. So many questions go through here. I'm fine on time.
Yeah.
So we've got one here. I enjoy writing, but I am more interested in printing, publishing, greeting cards, note cards, etc., bookmarks. With my astrology artwork, where would you recommend I look? Thanks so much for sharing your expertise.
Oh, yeah. Well, number one, Etsy. I think you need to get an Etsy account. You could sell the bookmarks, sell your art through Etsy. I just know a lot about Etsy because my daughter's artistic and creative. She loves Etsy. So Etsy's cool. And then this is what I have an artist friend and this is what I recommend. If you can partner with some authors, some people that write, maybe even children's authors that are looking for artists, designers, to create covers, to create, the pictures in a children's book. These are things as an artist, I think I would look for. I would get a Fiverr or Fiverr account, that you're an artist, that you can design, graphics, that you can do cover art for books. You can kind of get that out there and start marketing yourself, as a business, and a website, same thing you would do. And I would put in your submissions for art, because I know Llewellyn has artistic submissions, and some other publishing companies, they're able to submit their art. And I tried to help a friend of mine who's an artist she's in England. And I had her, my idea was I want her to create an image for each sun sign, like a really, and have secret symbols in there, kind of the essence of the energy of each sun sign. And she was doing this for me. And I wanted them to be like cards, like astrology cards that would be a part of this book that I was thinking of writing at the time. And so we submitted them, and because they have calendars, Llewellyn and all these, and I'm looking right now at a calendar and it has art. Someone designed the art on these calendars. So submit, if you have an idea, or, let them know you're wanting to do this, right? You're wanting to get your art out there, submit your art, and whatever your niche is, if it's, tarot cards you're wanting to create, or astrology. I would work with other authors. I would start connecting, and get those accounts on Etsy and Fiverr. That's what I recommend. Wonderful.
Thank you. I don't know if you covered this, but how did you find an editor?
Yeah. So the editor is automatically assigned. So when you, as far as the two that I've done, so when you submit your proposal, you have to say what what type of niche it is. Is it tarot? Is it spirituality? Is it, is it witchcraft? Is it astrology? So mine was astrology. So my proposal went to the astrology editor automatic. So she'll get all of the proposals that come in. She gets them all. The first editor you're dealing with is the most important, because they're the one, if they like your idea, they're going to go pitch it to the team at the publishing agency. And then once you get the contract, then it goes to the higher level editor. So then I was dealing with her boss, and then that editor's boss. And then they really got involved with me towards the end. So you'll deal with multiple editors, but the first one's the most important, because that's who's going to try to get you a contract.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question here. Have you chosen to get pre-assigned control numbers, PCNs, Library of Congress control numbers for your books?
Oh, no, I haven't heard of that. So this is something new. I'm gonna look into this now. See,
okay, great.
Yeah, thank you. Can they come off mute? I don't know if they can talk, but I'd like to hear what that's about if they can.
Sorry, there was a little bit more after that, but I've answered the question on here. I don't know,
Okay.
Laurie might. Oh no, here we go. So that was a question. These apparently allow books to be shelved in libraries. I have published 2 ebooks via KDP and didn't get PCNs for them because you can't get PCNs for ebooks. Now I want to release the paperback versions, and I'm trying to get PCNs, but you can't get a PCN for a book that's already published. I'm wondering if it's worth my time to keep navigating this catch-22, or if I should just move forward without the PNCs.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds frustrating. I think I would move on without the PC. I mean, I don't know if I would stress over that so much. Now, you could always try to, if you self-publish, you could try to, get a publisher to publish the book. I mean, and then, it would probably fix that issue, if you had a publisher. Could be. I'm just guessing. I don't know, but.
Wonderful. Thank you. If Amazon publishes your book, do they print on demand, Kindle, and fulfillment shipping?
Yes. I haven't had any problems with people get my book. I've never had my book run out. The only time I got a little scared was with the Phoenixes and Angels, because this book sold a little bit more than I thought it would, like quicker, like pre-orders. Because I finally learned about pre-orders. And so you got to go in the system and let them know all the events you're doing. I have to put everything in their book signings so that they know that they order enough print copies for the US, for the publisher here. And that publisher in the US is who sends the books to Amazon and all these places. So I called to get author copies just by chance for my book signing coming up. And they're like, oh, well, we only have 10 copies left. I'm like, what? I go, well, you mean just for me? Or no. I said, do you send my books to Amazon? Oh, yeah. You need to let your publisher know we need more copies. So I wrote them, and immediately they're like, 400 more copies have just been printed, so sent out. So I learned that just like literally a month ago. So yes, yeah, I know, right? Like I'm like, I guess it could have been out of stock, but I haven't had that happen yet online. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like I don't need that. So
this kind of ties into part of the last question, but how do you see publishing with Lulu or books on demand?
Lulu. Yeah, Lulu. I haven't heard of Lulu. Like I said, I use Book Search, Create Space, and then I'm doing. But I will tell you, if there's something that's not outside of KDP or Amazon, it might be worth looking into. They might offer better royalties and just different support services and stuff. I'm open to it, because like I said, I've had some problems with Amazon with the ratings and the reviews and just the algorithm thing. And it can be a little frustrating.
Okay, thank you. Have you ever hired a publicist for self-publishing books? Are they usually 15% too?
I've never hired a publicist yet. And I'll be honest with you, you really don't need one. I really don't think you need one. I think if you really want to get the key is to get published. I would pay for the money for the agent, because they're going to pitch your idea to all of the published companies. And once you get a contract, they're going to give you a publicist free of charge. But you could hire a publicist if you know you don't want to go through the publishing route. You just want to self-publish books. I mean, some people that's their main job. They just self-publish books, right? You could get a publicist. That I would recommend doing so if you're going to just stick with self-publishing, because then they can really, pitch you to podcast. And I'm not sure what their fees are. I've never looked into that. I know the agents are kind of expensive, and then they take 15% of all your royalties. Now, I don't know if a publicist would actually take your royalties. I don't think so. I think they would want a fee, though, right, for their work.
This kind of ties into line. We've got some questions on some of the figures. So when you say the agent gets 15% of royalties, is that separate from the 10-15% you get for royalties when you go with a publisher? In other words, the publisher is allocating 15% to the agent and 10 to 15% to the author, and the publisher keeps the rest of the royalties.
That's a good question. I'm not sure how it plays out, but I do know that my friend who has an agent, that she gets a royalty check, but she's never told. I think they come out, like you just said, before she gets her 10%. I think they pay to the agent, because another thing she mentioned, she's in a totally different publisher than I have. It doesn't deal with a totally different publisher. And she has had trouble getting in contact with her publisher. They just don't write her back. And she's trying to get a hold of them. And so what's helped having an agent, she said the only good thing about having an agent is they did get her with a company, a publisher she really wanted, number one. And number two, when they call the publisher, the agent, they respond immediately. So the agent and publishers have something that they're going on. So if you want somebody looking out for you, agent looks out for you. And the agent can also negotiate you keeping the rights to your book. They can negotiate your percentages. They can negotiate you getting paid up front. Because see, I got paid up front years ago, right, to write the one that didn't get published. But these books, no one ever offered to pay me up front to write the books. I was never offered any cash or money. So an agent can ask, hey, can you give them $3,000? They haven't wrote the book yet. That's a lot of work, right? They can negotiate things for you, but you just have to put money into hiring them. That's the thing.
Wow, thank you. Such invaluable insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are UK royalties in British pounds, not USD? Do you lose money in the currency conversion this way?
I don't. I do. They're in pounds, but they do convert with the currency. I haven't noticed like a big hit or anything like that. It's really not. It's, when I go in the system, it's all in pounds. And so then I'm able to, calculate it, what would it be in dollars. And that's what my royalties are. And, like I said, you only get paid twice a year. So I've only gotten a few royalty checks so far. So it's still kind of new, since my first books came out last year, I've only got paid twice. So now I'll have 4 books that I'll have 4 royalties for. It'll change. So I'm still waiting to see. I'm hoping. It's interesting too. Something else. People can return your book, and it is something I noticed, because when I was in the system, this is what I like about Collective Ink and John Hunt. They changed, is that I can go into the system and go under each book I have and see financials. I can see each month how many books I sold in UK, Australia, United States, and then what the total was that the publisher made. And then later you'll see -1, and you're like, what is that? I found out people, if they return your book, they minus off the royalties. And then you'll end up, so that's what that is. So some people, might return a book, because Amazon, whatever, or maybe it wasn't what they thought it was, whatever. I've only had like one time I had a -1 on there, and I asked what it was, and they're like, someone returned it or something. Like, oh, okay. And then the thing I like is that I can see, though, every month they update how many royalties Kindle I made. Kindle's separate than paperback, and because you get a little bit more royalties at that, and you'll see the price, what total is, and then every 6 months you'll get a statement. Now Llewellyn, I don't get anything except a check. So I don't see I can't go in and see how my book's selling. I have no idea how my book is selling, except to go to Amazon to the ratings to see, what number is it, 200 in astrology books, what is my rating on that book? So that's how I know if my book's selling. And sometimes it'll be on the bestseller list. Hot new release. Sometimes you'll see, that's another thing. Forgot about that. They want you to get your book on the Amazon hot new release. And it only, I think once your book's out a month, it's not considered a new release anymore. but the more sales you get, it puts your book up to the top and like #1 new release. And I had that happen with the Phoenixes and Angels book. It was #1 for about 4 weeks, and that had never happened to me with any of my books. So that's been really cool. And I got more pre-orders on this book than any of my other books because I finally was asking for people to pre-order. I mean, I'm like, I know it's weird, but you're not going to get the book until like 8 months. But you know, when you pre-order, right? And my family, you know, they're buying it. You know,
People are so excited for it. It's like,
when the
pre-order.
yeah, yeah. And then when it releases, the date it releases, a UK date might be different than USA date. The book's mailed. Some people, this is what was weird. Some people are getting my book before the release date. They're like, oh, it came in the mail. I'm like, I'm just doing my release live and they already had the book mailed. Other people, it took a couple weeks. So, you know, there's just some things with it. You never know, right? That happen, but.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know we're getting a little bit over time, but I don't mind staying if you don't for some more questions. So if anybody has to leave, just a reminder, the replay is put on YouTube. So if you need to go, the rest of this Q&A will be on there. So we totally understand. Okay, so when you market pre-orders, what do you list as the benefit of ordering in advance?
That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out. You know, when I put it out there, you know, the way I say it is, you know, hey, you know, I make it, you make it like interesting, like, you know, oh, hot new release, you know, the book's going to be out, get your copy now, you know, it's really sales. And I don't like sales, you know, I don't like trying to sell stuff, you know, it's just not my thing. And so, you know, you got to be bold. You got to say, hey, you know, pre-orders are a big deal. And that's what I learned, you know, through the publisher. Like the look on my face was like that cat. I mean, I was like, what? Like, I did not know pre-orders were such an important thing for a book. And so now I know that I'm marketing as quick as I can. It's like this astrology in the nodes house. As soon as I'm done marketing Phoenixes and Angels, I'm gonna start marketing that book for the next 10 months, you know, because you want to get those pre-orders.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And it sounds like marketing is such a big part and parcel of it. And
just
yeah.
If anything, I recommend spend money if you want to hire a marketing expert, because I am exhausted, you know, with all the social medias and it's like, okay. And then I learned that this is something I learned. You can schedule your social media post in Meta for the best, most active times for your pages. No one ever told me that. I just figured this out about 8 months ago. And so I go in there, I'm like, oh, cool. Instagram, it's 6 a.m. on this date. That's when most of my people are on that follow me. And then so I'll schedule an ad or my book ad then, or my post. And I do the same for Facebook and it's different. And then I connect them so the same post will go on both. I'm getting savvy with it now. But trying to do all of it, it's a lot. And I really, as I work full time as a social worker, so I really need, I would love to hire someone as a marketing person, but I just don't have the time right now.
Absolutely.
And the money. So eventually maybe, but man, that's the key. You got to be good at marketing and or find someone that can help you. And like I said, Fiverr has been, there's a lot of people on there that are marketing experts and they're not that expensive. I mean, really, and it's worth the money. You got to kind of put some into it to make your book valuable. Another thing, the reason you need to market your book, this is something I just found out, and I'm scared because I don't want it to happen to me. They can give your book back to you and return your rights and say, we don't want to print anymore. I didn't know that. And so if your book doesn't sell well, I had 3 friends of mine recently that said, hey, they're telling me they're not going to publish my astrology book anymore. They're going to give me the rights back and let me have it. And then you could go publish it somewhere else though, right? If you want to. But they won't publish it anymore. And they were really down about it because it has to do with sales. If your book is not selling, that's why marketing's key. You can't just, you know, the first year forget about the book. And that's why now I'm marketing the sun signs book. I'm marketing the moon signs book. I'm marketing the 12th house book. I'm marketing the angels book, Phoenixes Angels. So I'm really trying to market all of my books equally. Right. And so it's important. It's important.
Absolutely. And I'll do a quick sales pitch here. We do have a marketing for astrologers class at Kepler in the fall. Nice. So if you want to devise your own plan and your own strategies, get yourself out there, take that course.
I like that.
We'll put it in the link in the description. Perfect. Okay. So I heard that Amazon screens out this is back to the reviews when we were talking about that. Mm-hmm. I heard that Amazon screens out a review from anyone who didn't actually buy the book through them. Do you know if this is true?
Now that is true. That I think is part of the issue too. If it's not a verified purchase, but we'll tell you this. One of the things that's important is to offer book rallies, where you offer free signed copies of your book. And I did that quite a bit with my books. And I would, my groups, hey, the first 5 people that share with me your 8th house planets, you'll get a copy of my Phoenix's Angels. I'll mail to you free of charge. And I sign it, I give them a card, I mail it to them, and I ask them, hey, can you go on and rate it? And the sun signs book, moon signs book, I've had people buy it directly from me. And if they upload a picture of the book, and that way Amazon knows they have the book, those reviews have gone through for me, for people that have got signed copies at a book signing from me or whatever. They review my book on Amazon. But then once in a while, people aren't able to get the reviews through. And it was Canada that it specifically happened with, Amazon Canada. So I don't know if it's something with Canada, Amazon, because in the US, it hasn't happened as much to me. It's mostly like the overseas, like England. There was people in different countries that were trying to review it and they couldn't.
Interesting. Well, thank you for sharing those insights. I'm sure it's going to be very important for people who are trying to publish their books. This kind of ties in as well. How do you do a book review rally? How do you coordinate?
Oh, yeah. So there's a couple things you do. You can go live on Facebook and just say, hey, this is a book rally. I want, go out. If you want my book, go out and, buy it or contact me and I'll get you a signed copy. Or you can do a YouTube live. That is also what I've done, a YouTube live. And the first 5 people that join get a free copy of my book. I also do newsletters. I just started this. It's crazy to me. This is another lesson learned. For many years, I was doing astrology consultations and I never really collected a client list. It's critical. I'm like, I lost all of those emails. You know how you change emails and so I just started building and I made MailChimp is what it's called. And you can add subscribers, and I'm doing that now. And I have a link on my website where people sign up to get my newsletter, and then I email them a free birth will and birth report if they sign up for my newsletter. And then when I get them on now I have like 1,000 people that are in my MailChimp that are in my newsletter, and I email them and I'll offer first 10 people that email me get a free copy of my moon signs book. That's what I do. That's like a book rally. And then you get the talk in and then they tell their friends, and so it's really giving away your books, but we call it, a book rally, which is fun. And it gets people interested. And then they, start looking at your other books, right. And so it's just a way to market.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. I'll take these last couple of questions before we wrap
Sure.
up. So how did you get on Coast to Coast?
Okay. This is really a cool story. So, my publicist, my amazing publicist, Gavin, I love him. Okay. He's in England. And he literally wrote me, I was working and had my phone. It said, urgent, are you online? And I'm like, yes. And I thought, what's going on? He's like, do you want to be on Coast to Coast? I'm like, yes. He said, okay, you got to call the producer and pitch him. And that's what I was saying. So I had to call her and pitch to her. And she wasn't really, at the time I was worried because she's like, I don't know if George likes trauma. He didn't like trauma, and I'm like, well, it's not all about trauma. It's about spiritual abilities, And she's like, let me put you on hold. She put me on hold. And I looked up his bio and I saw that he ran the TV show in St. Louis. He has a house here. He lives in St. Louis, which when I got on the show, he asked me, oh, you're from St. Louis, because I sent him a copy of my book signed, told him I'm from St. Louis and I know he's here. But she said, okay, I'll book you Monday. It was literally a pitch. And at the beginning, it wasn't going well, guys. My gut instinct was like, oh, they're not going to let me on. Oh, and then they're like Monday. I'm like, okay, 2 a.m. So and most people, it'd be hard to stay up, but I did it. So 2 to 4, I did it. And I'm going to tell you a funny story and a lesson learned. So I had been a part of something in this women's entrepreneur group. And they're like, you need to have a free gift on your website and all this stuff. I didn't know that. So I learned this and I saw these free gifts they're doing. I felt like an idiot. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so far behind. I'm not up to speed here. And so I got my website designer, said, I need you to create me a pop-up so people can get a free gift and I can send them a free birth chart, but they're gonna have to put their birth date information in, right? Because I'm gonna have to have time to calculate it and all that on my program. So she created this thing, and I did it. I did this event with like 100 women for a month on Facebook, where you post and all this stuff, and it got you subscribed, it got you followers, people interested in your business, right? I forgot to take it down, the free thing. Oh. So when I got on Coast to Coast, I'm on the show and it's ding, 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 my email. I had 450 requests for birth charts.
All free.
Free birth charts. I'm like, oh my God. I did not think that was going to happen, right? And then I'm like panicking, like literally I was getting overwhelmed. I'm like, how am I going to get back to all these people? And so I just dug through them. Every night I was up till 12 or 1 in the morning, writing them a generic email, copy paste. I got real savvy at it. Go over to my program, calculate their chart, attach it, email. Thank you for contacting the website. Right. I did this for like a month. So now I learned my lesson. And now you have to.
And it sounds like perseverance is one of the key things I've taken through your talk about getting up early. If you need to go and do a podcast, get up and do it. Yes. Go through all the, even though it was a slight mistake and all of it free, at least people were coming to you, but you had to persevere and go through each one. But you did it. You went through and did it. You didn't say, I'm not going to do this because I can't be bothered.
Exactly. And let me tell you something else funny that happened with the Coast to Coast thing. They said the producers are going to call you at 5 o'clock the day of, or whatever. And they call and they're like, okay, do you have a landline? Do you have a home phone? I don't have a home phone. We got rid of the home phone years ago, because most people just have cell. I mean, this is something I panicked. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to cancel me. I'm not going to be able to be on here, right? And they're like, I'm like, what if I don't? Well, can you go to someone's house? Do you have an office that has a landline? I'm like, I don't know anyone that has a landline. Like my neighbor, they haven't a phone in years, right? And so they do that because they're worried because it's live and you could get disconnected. I mean, if you're 5G or whatever. So they said, okay, we'll go ahead. I said, is it going to be a problem doing it on the phone? And they said, it might, but we'll see what we can work out. Okay, we'll call you at 15 till 2 a.m. Right? I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm literally like on pins and needles, and they call me and they're okay. They start, okay, we're going to get the Zoom up. So what they had was have me log into a Zoom. It was live on mute. And then they start counting down. Carmen, are you there? I'm like, yeah. And then we went live. And the Zoom was on. They said, if you get disconnected from the phone, just start talking on Zoom and we'll hear you. I mean, that was the backup plan because we didn't have a phone, a landline. And so I learned from that, but I also had like 450 people contact me, and I had about 100 people want a chart, and I have a wait list. And so one show really brought people. I mean, that's why, and the thing was, it's all my publicist. Without him thinking of me, he could have tried to pitch somebody else, but he thought of me. And so I really honor that. And if he wouldn't have thought of me, I would have never had the opportunity. Wouldn't have had it. So your publicist is important. And he sees, he puts the work in, and they see if you're putting the work in. So, when he's marketing me, they did that special video you guys saw. They did that. This is all things they're doing to help authors. So, but it was him. It was all him. I would have never got on Coast to Coast myself. It was him. So
wonderful. What a fascinating story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. It was funny. It was stressful.
I bet. But you rolled with it. You rolled with it. Fantastic.
Yeah. It went well.
So last couple of questions here before we wrap up. How do you register your book for author protection? ISBN? ?
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's interesting. So with the published books, I didn't have to worry about that. But with my self-published books, when you self-publish, it automatically gives it its unique ISBN, at least for me. So all of my Kindle and all my published books have an ISBN number. Or wait, not Kindle, my paperback books have an ISBN. Kindle is a little different, like someone was talking about with them having problems with that. So, but it has me as the publisher, my name, on all of my self-published books. And so I haven't had a problem with that. They all have, all my paperbacks have an ISBN. And that's important to know that, because even when I called to get author copies of this, I panicked at first because the United States, they're like, well, that title's not coming up. And I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like, what do you mean the title's not coming up? And then I gave them the other title that I had with the publisher. Wasn't coming up. They're like, what's the ISBN? So I got it. And then, oh, there it is. So the ISBN is important. And that's how they'll find your book, not by title. Sometimes if it's put in wrong, or the is at the end of, there's little things that can mess up it. Because the reason it takes 10 to 12 months for your book to publish is it takes that long for your book to get in all of the systems, the book systems, all of the websites, Barnes and Noble, all of the magazines, everything. It takes that long to get it in all of those publishing databases. That's why you wait 10 to 12 months. Yeah.
Wow, fascinating insight. Okay, last two questions. What are your tips to find an agent?
Oh man, I found I would get with other authors that have an agent and find out if they like them, because I tell you what, I was this close to hiring the agent of my friend who's an author, and she's got like 9 books. And she said recently, Carmen, I've decided I just don't think I need an agent. It's 15% of my royalties. And I just don't, I think I made a mistake getting an agent. And I'm glad she told me that, because I was going to hire her agent to be my next agent. And I'm not going to do an agent. I've decided I'm not going to do an agent. Because I have my foot, once you get your foot in the door, this is the thing. It's getting that first book published is the hardest part, because it's very hard to get your first book published, because they're doing a marketing analysis. All this stuff. I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy, right? But once you get your foot in the door and you're a published author, it's a little bit easier because your publisher they know you, they like you, they know your book, so it's easier to get more books published with them, right? And so it's getting your foot in the door. So to get the first contract, I would say if you keep getting turned down, I would get an agent, because that's the way you're going to get your foot in the door and get the first contract. And once you do that, it's going to fall in your lap. You're going to start learning this, and other publishers will be interested in you because they know you published before, and you're going to be in the system, so to speak, in the publishing system, and they will probably publish easier. But it's getting your first book published is the key. It took me all these years. I'm 47 years old. I started, what was it? My first book was 2002 or something. And I mean, but I'll be honest, I wasn't sending it out everywhere. I should have done that. I wasn't sending it to every single publisher I could think of. I sent these recent books out. I got some no's, and don't let that get you down. Do not give up, because if I can publish a book, you can publish a book. Okay. Anybody can do it. And don't give up. You just got to keep it up, and don't let criticism get you down. You know what I mean? Eventually somebody's going to like what you write and your idea. And that's all it is. And you know what else I believe? It's timing. It's all astrology. The timing was meant to be for me. Even though it took longer than I would have liked. I look back, I'm like, my God, I'm 47. I wish I would have had a book published in my 30s. But who cares? It's over. You can't change that. So just do what you can do now, and focus on the future. And in a day, something can change in one heartbeat, right? In an instant. And you get published. And then you're like excited because it's like your passion, right? So don't give up. Don't give up. That's my Aries moon. Don't give up, right? Just keep fighting.
Going, persevere, Cardinal.
Yeah, right. Just keep going, man. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a beautiful message to end this webinar. And again, thank you so much on behalf of Kepler College. Thank you so much for joining us. And for everybody who's still here, we'll have the replay up in the next couple of days. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and being with us for today. And thank you again so much, Carmen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And maybe we could do a Let's Talk Astrology, maybe 8th house, 12th house stuff. Maybe do an episode.
Oh, I would
love those topics.
I would love to. Hey, let me know. I would love to do 8th and 12th house stuff. I got all my little research and my patterns and all that. Yeah.
Wonderful. Fascinating areas of charts. So lots of hearts coming through and hands, and a lot of people saying thank you so much. And
thank you. How sweet.
If you want to talk to Carmen about her book, you should join our private Facebook group, where it's and then we have a group just for a book club, and we're going to do a private Q&A with Carmen in our group on her book. So please join us on August 31st.
Yeah.
And I do have a link in the email newsletter. So hopefully you're on our list, and you can just click from the newsletter.
That would be great. love to see you guys on the book live, on the book club live. And we'll talk all about phoenixes and angels and a lot of the research I've done on these houses, and love to meet you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, again, thank you everyone for coming so much, and thank you, Carmen, again for such a fantastic and the invaluable insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody joining. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Goodbye, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.